Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming to another edition of our community call for Bread Cooperative. Today we have John and Colleen who are going to be talking about Solar Foundation, which is a super cool project. I actually recently, on my podcast, episode hasn't been released yet, but I had an interview with one of the kind of partners with one of the projects, specifically in Tanzania. And yeah, because John and Colleen kind of connected us, and it was super, super fun. A super interesting conversation to see what they've been doing on the ground in Tanzania for a project called Jukumu. Um, the interview itself, I hope I saved I recorded it, but I had some issues with the recording, but I think I've salvaged it, so I think it will come out maybe in the next couple of weeks. Still need to try out with editing, but it should be okay, I think. But yeah, before I butcher what John and Colleen do, probably best if they explain a bit what Solar Foundation is and take us through some of the really neat projects that they're going through. They'll do a presentation, and then at the end we'll have a Q&A, which we'll record as well. But yeah, with that, I'll give it to John and Colleen.
Great. Thanks so much, Josh. I'm really excited to hear the episode of your podcast with our friends at Takumu. And thanks for hosting us for this spotlight. I'm just going to start with a quick overview of the Solar Foundation and then move into our Solar Saving Circles project in Tanzania, which is where we're working with Takumu Tanzania um, and our technical partners, Media Labs. And then John is going to take it from there and talk about our tech solution. And then, as Josh said, we are going to open it up for questions and discussion. So, first, our mission is to combine new tech and local partnerships to accelerate holistic solar solutions in Africa. We focus primarily on working with local NGO partners to create solar solutions for schools, healthcare centers, community centers. This is a picture here of one of our projects called Amawa. It's in rural Tanzania at the base of Kilimanjaro. It's a microgrid for local schools serving 800 children, very mainly orphans and vulnerable children. What's cool here is it's a real example of how we don't just do solar, we keep working with the community and seeing if we can help continue to use the solar productively and to help meet some of the needs of the community. So, and there's always things that happen with every project that we did not foresee. We're getting better, but there's always some really great ripples of impact. And for Amawa, it was really interesting that the whole community came together to improve the road that serviced the school because they couldn't get the solar infrastructure to the school without road improvement. So that I thought that was really interesting. And now the entire community uses power from the microgrid to charge their devices, like their phones or any medical equipment. Um, Another thing that came out is that there were a couple of businesses that were nearby that started paying Amawa for the clean power from the microgrid, so that really helps the operation of the school. And then finally, we recently added a cold drink initiative where we helped them purchase a solar powered refrigerator where they sell cold drinks and ice pops that contribute income and help fund any necessary repairs to the grid. So I love seeing like whenever possible. So moving forward, we were founded. John and I founded the foundation in October of 2022, and we've really evolved since then. We've completed over 13 solar projects, um, mainly in Uganda, Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, where we're doing the solar saving circles, and a recent project for a school in Liberia, which was very challenging and took a really long time. We've evolved from just focusing on getting solar to off-grid communities to a more holistic solution where we combine solar power plus productive appliances like water pumps, computer labs, electric pressure cookers, etc. Um, Here you see a couple examples from our projects. In the top are women receiving solar lanterns, which are really key to all of our work. They start immediately showing people how solar works and how it can offset their need for uh, polluting fuels such as kerosene and liquid natural gas. And then in the bottom is where we did solar for a rural primary school in Nigeria in connection with Helpers Community Foundation. Um, I think a key point for us to always remember, it's really hard when we're in the West and we can just turn on electricity all the time, is that um, there are 600 million people or more in Africa who lack access to electricity. And that just seems unconscionable to John and I in this day and age, especially for the sunniest continent in the world. And once they get this very low cost solar infrastructure, from then on, the power is free for years to come. The sun won't raise its prices, and the power can't be hoarded or shut off. It makes so much sense in our minds. We have four guiding principles. The first one is energy independence. We work always for community ownership of the infrastructure. The second is trying to facilitate greater financial sovereignty for the local communities with which we work. So combining, as I've said, solar plus productive appliances for increased streams of income and well-being from things like water pumps or fans when, they're dealing with so much heat. Um, we also work to find solutions that can help them adapt and respond to climate change. The people we are working with have contributed the least to the climate crisis, but are suffering some of the most extreme impacts. So, if we can help in any way, help them find water by digging deeper wells, help them adjust to heat by having solar powered fans, help them find new streams of income with a computer lab. That's what we try to do. We work with our local partners always first to utilize the Strive model, which is sustainable tech that reinforces indigenous values and economics. I think that's a really cool model and way of remembering what we're doing. We're just two members, but like I said, we have local partners in every place we work. So that really helps us get the job done. We're both former members of the Gitcoin Public Goods Funding Team and the Gitcoin Climate Advisory, which morphed into the Climate Coordination Network. I have a background in project management, outreach, and operations at Microsoft and Apple. And John is our solar expert with over 15 years of CNI experience in solar. And also, he's our tech guru, which is always needed um, with our work. So we are very good at working together and kind of the yin and yang, covering each other's strengths and weaknesses. And I really appreciate everything he brings to the table. Um, Now moving into the Solar Saving Circles project, which is something we've really wanted to work on for a long time because um, I kept thinking it would be really nice to get solar in the hands of more women. Obviously, we've worked with schools and healthcare facilities, but how do you get solar directly into the hands of women? So, together with our local partners, Chikumu, who Josh is recently interviewed for his podcast, and Nita Labs, our on the ground tech partner, we're currently empowering women in the Borough Hati region of Dar es Salaam with solar power productive appliances and digital skills. We're really proud of the progress we're making. We launched last summer with 4 traditional savings groups in the Humu Tanzania network, which is an extraordinary network, really, of over 200 groups, and 80% of the participants are women. We always start with a solar powered community hub where, and in this case, this is where the groups gather and they receive training and exchange ideas and things like that. Then we employ kind of an asset-based community development model. So we seeded groups with solar lanterns as shown in the top picture here. What's really interesting in this project is that the solar lanterns are considered assets, and they're the first assets that many of these groups have ever had. And so the way Jakumu and Nita Labs set up this project is that the women in the groups are responsible for figuring out how they're going to use the lanterns to save money and earn money that goes into their collective, their shared community savings pools. So some groups rented out their lanterns for income. Many of the groups use the lanterns at night so that they can sell their goods after dark, so for a longer period. And for some, it's just saving money so they don't have to buy kerosene or LNG canisters. So we'll talk about the model going forward, but today we're already past 9 groups, 100 participants, and the groups are saving funds for things like water pumps, televisions so that they can charge men to watch football, and electric pressure cookers for their catering businesses. Um, Stepping back, what even is a saving circles? A saving circle, this is really interesting, and I think it integrates with the work that the bread co-op is doing with the bread stacks technology. But when I first started hearing about it, it was called Roscas. I read a lot about Roscas. Those are rotating savings and credit associations. They work in different ways and go by many different names, as you can see here. But in Tanzania, how it works is members contribute a fixed amount of money into a shared community pool, and then they decide as a group how to utilize the funds. And one key point to remember is from our friend Will Riddick. And I think he is like super amazing in all of the work he's done. If you ever have a chance to read his work, his Substack is phenomenal. But he reminds us that a community savings pool isn't just a financial device, it's a shared social coordination tool. And what does he mean by that? Well, we have an example here shown here in these pictures. This is the Jakumu Farmers Group. Um, and as you can see, it's a co-ed group. And in the words of Jakumu's director, Alan Agwe, they are continuously worried and stressed about water. You know, they're really drying up more and more each year. And that's really hard when you're trying to grow food. And so they really need a water pump for the dry season, which starts in June. So they're using their savings from the solar lanterns just to collectively pool their funds to pay for a down payment on a solar water pump. And John and I helped through our networking and our contacts find it looks like a really good organization. It's the first time we've worked with them, but stay tuned. They're called SimuSolar, and the picture on top is from when they came out to demonstrate to this group how the solar water pump would work. And a ripple of impact that came from this demonstration is that the group decided to collectively farm their largest plot of land together during the dry season. So I think that's a really interesting experiment, and I look forward to seeing what happens. Another related project to our solar saving circles is securing the internet and also a computer lab at the Jakumu Community Hub. We recently participated in the IEEE Connecting the Unconnected Challenge, and we won for a best overall concept for our solar powered community broadband network in Tanzania at the Jakumu Hub. And this is the hub. In the next slide, you can see it. It's already solar powered. It has more rooms to it than this is just the office. But we are now working to turn it into a computer lab that can serve as a center of resilience for digital skills training, for micro business incubation, for community connection, and increased resilience in the face of climate change, poverty, and migration. And we are really hoping that this solution could be a model for many rural communities throughout Tanzania and also, um, you know, in some of our other partner communities. Um, as I've alluded to before, we believe that true ROI in the next slide are it's really what it really means to us is ripples of impact from solar power, from the Solar Saving Circles project, and from asset-based community development. We start with these affordable portable solar lanterns as the first asset for many of the groups. And not only does it give them a way to save more money and earn some funds for their collective pools, but it also increases participation and trust in the Jukumu network. Once that trust is established, then people are way more open to learning new digital skills. And that trust has been demonstrated already, and that the women are pretty eager to start working with computers, learning our tech solution, which is John's going to talk about in a minute, and also learning, taking classes at the computer lab for how to use the internet safely and productively. So this collage just shows some of the women that are going to be in that are involved in the Solar Saving Circles project. Some of which are going to be trained as digital community trainers for a train the trainer model to run the computer lab and then to go out and train other groups in our digital solution. Um, Finally, this is our vision for the future. Perhaps it's starting to take shape, which is solar powered, community owned, year round trusted spaces, not only in Africa, but perhaps even in our own communities. The more I do this work, the more I think, gosh, we need some of these in my own area and maybe throughout the world. A way to perhaps have a cooperative network of support where if I had a community resilience hub in my community, maybe I could have a relationship with the Jakumu community hub and we could work together and exchange ideas. There is a lot that the groups we're working with can teach us here in the States and in the rest of the world as well. So, um, this is also important to remember. It's a physical hub, but it's also a digital hub for the technology for the saving circles. And I think this is where our work aligns with Bread Co-op's exciting tech called the Bread Stacks. And so now I'm going to turn this over to John to talk about our tech solution for the Jakumu Digital Hub.
Yeah, and we definitely don't want to take much credit other than offering a lot of support to the Neta Labs team. So the down in Tanzania, the Neta Labs team has been a partner of ours since the beginning of the solar saving circle work. Uh, they had already been working closely with Jukumu Tanzania, and um, when we stumbled upon them, they were already dreaming about how to basically build digital rails on top of what is already this robust IRL network of community savings programs. And so we have partnered with them on multiple grants and other funding opportunities and continue to be strong supporters of everything they're building. And while they take certainly feedback from us, we really let them lead the way because they know better than us the needs of the communities that they serve. And so uh, I would say we learn uh, probably even more from them than they do from us in a lot of ways. And so the way that the Solar Saving Circle model works is that uh, the Solar Foundation primarily funds solar, internet, and other infrastructure for communities. And so we look to find NGOs or other uh, community groups in rural areas, typically that have an existing physical community center or meeting gathering place. And as Colleen mentioned, one of the first things we always make sure to do is to really build up the resources of that community hub. So that usually starts with some kind of a solar system on the facility, sometimes computers or computers at a later stage. And now we are, as Colleen mentioned, working on internet solutions in these community hubs as well, whether that be satellite-based Starlink or local broadband, depending on the individual community hub. And it really from there, we see this as kind of a hub and spoke model where these hubs are really serving a robust community of people. And so how can we help them to build out or increase the programs that they're offering to the community members? And so in the case of Jukumu, we're working with them on they're already doing a ton of education for their community. We're working to add in some education around solar, some education around the internet, and then some specialized education along the way for business development as needed and financial knowledge, because a lot of these folks are generally unbanked. So I think stepping back to the sort of the Web3 and crypto space, I think one of the greatest things that it provides for a lot of these communities is uh, the ability to have banking services that have never really been available for them in the past. And um, out of these, so in the case of these, the hub, then it is serving these individual community savings circles. And so, as Colleen said, we started out with 4 last year, and I believe we're up to 6 or 7 now, but it is continuing to grow. And the way, go ahead, Colleen.
Sorry, 9.
9, thank you. Yeah, sorry. Late in the day, my brain is not retaining knowledge here. Um, and so in each of those individual community savings circles, they have a shared savings pool. And the way that we're running these pools right now is that we contribute solar lanterns. So we've now contributed 200 solar lanterns to Jukumu and essentially the hub that then get distributed out to community members that are then uh, agree to join a local savings pool. And so we really see this as twofold. So one, we're giving an actual ownership of this physical device to these people that then are be able to take it out their home, have lighting in their home, have some at least some basic charging for a cell phone or other small device in the solar lantern. If they have a business, we've seen many cases where maybe somebody has like an agricultural business, a small farm stand, that sort of thing, and they're able to bring that lamp out and run the farm stand for an extra few hours into the evening because they have the light there to attract customers, but also to provide a little bit of safety so they're not just sitting in the dark. Um, and in exchange, we're asking them to start these saving circles because we're not really looking for that money to come back to us. We're not really like lending these devices to them. We're really using this as an incentive to kickstart these savings pools in their community. And so when we have, in the case of a lot of these circles, anywhere from like 10 to 20 women coming together to save, and the cost of the lantern is about $20. So sort of the initial commitment is, hey, you're going to pool the amount of money you would have spent on this lantern. And also because you have this solar lantern, now you're going to likely save some money on LNG or other gas or kerosene for lighting needs. And so there is both a savings that can then be turned uh, in, into this shared savings pool. And so what we're seeing is that if we go into a group with 20 women and give them 20 solar lanterns, we've already added all this impact to their lives. But at the end of that cycle, now they have $400 in a shared savings pool that they can then use and rely on as almost like their own little micro bank. Though I don't think we would probably call that in a legal sense for any legal concerns, but that it really is essentially what they are ending up with is a small bank account where they all have saved into and where then they have access to be able to borrow some of those funds for other things in their lives. And I guess this is the very last. I think there was more in between. The carrying forward into a little bit of a future vision here, what we're seeing is that we can not only provide these physical assets to these groups, they can grow these savings groups, but then I think there's going to be an opportunity for us to then help to invest into further infrastructure even beyond that savings pool. So I think a good example is Colleen was speaking about this farmers group that we're working with. And so they have received the lanterns, they've been using the lantern, they've been saving into a shared savings pool. Now they would like to get a shared asset of this water pump, the solar powered water pump for their farming community. And so they're taking some of that, we'll say for discussion's sake, that $400 that's in their account. And they're saying, hey, we've got a little small down payment, but we can't afford this whole thing. And the Solar Foundation can come in and make a micro loan at very reasonable terms to them to make up the difference so that then they can get that solar pump, be able to have greater harvests through those greatest harvests, make more money, and then be able to over time pay that back into their pay for that pump over time in their savings pool. And as it scales, what we really envision is that we've got all of these, we're starting to build these individual groups of people who then are building certain amount of reputation within their community. And so from a lending perspective, as this hopefully continues to grow, um, we'll be able to see like which saving circles we feel comfortable lending funds to and which maybe we would feel less comfortable to, or maybe it would be a smaller amount at first to really test the waters with them. And so all of this is done through, and I guess I should have built another slide that talked a little more about the NetaLabs product, but um, NetaLabs has built what we're calling this digital community hub. And so we have this physical community hub that we've helped to enrich through our solar impact. And now we see this as this digital layer that mirrors that physical community. And so within the digital hub, the software allows for these individual groups to set up a group on the platform, and then to save money via the platform. We're starting right now using fiat, but we are moving towards some crypto solutions um, for all the crypto nerds, I guess, on the call. That I for one am always pushing like, oh, how do we get this more of it on chain? How do we keep using more crypto systems and all of this? And I really am learning that in some cases it just is not, it has to move slow and that it sometimes does not fit the needs of a community. So that's been an interesting realization recently, realizing that, hey, some of the reasons why I think this technology is so important don't always resonate with the needs of individual community. And for example, Tanzania, the laws around crypto um, are a little tricky. It provides kind of this gray area where crypto is allowed, but it does really constrain what you can do, I guess, from a legal perspective, and also what is going to work for the community when they already have existing systems that are working. Um, and so, I guess overall, to sort of wrap us, and we can maybe have some questions from everybody, but um, we really have been excited about this pilot and this model, and are really seeing that the solar power that we started out giving away 4 years ago was important, but more and more it's never been about the power or about the solar itself. It's really about what people do with it. It's about the impact that's made from that resource, not the resource itself. And if you don't work with communities to grow these kinds of programs, that you're not really maximizing the impact and possibility of this infrastructure that we've been providing to people. And so it's been really, been an amazing journey for 4 years. And as Colleen said, it's just the two of us, but we like to say, um, small team with a big heart, and making the biggest impact we can. So, um, for all of you that aren't following us, you can find us on Twitter primarily. We're slowly branching out into some other places, but it's a good place to follow our work. And then I know the Bread Co-op has been participating in the Artisan Fund, but we did create an Artisan Artifact for this season of the Artisan Fund. So would love for folks that are participating or that like to purchase artifacts and support good projects, we'd love the support here. Um, and yeah, maybe we will open it up to questions from there.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing the presentation. Um, yeah, we can. I have plenty of questions, but I'll save mine. I'll save mine and give somebody else the opportunity to go first, maybe.
Am I here? Can I hear me? It's on. Testing, testing. I think the first reaction that I have is the song "Just the Two of Us." We can make it for each other. So
That
that was
resonates.
my first take with it. Um, but also what I really like, I like the idea of the community hubs that you guys are doing. I think that's such a valuable idea because it really addresses the practicalities right, of what communities need. Often communities need spaces where they can meet. Like even in Western countries, right? There is a lack of third spaces. There is a lack of spaces that are accessible for communities to use in a way that they have ownership on them. So um, I think what that showcases, right, is how everything y'all are doing kind of ties together into creating something that is, that surpasses that extends beyond even maybe the existence of the project itself, right? Because if the community space is there, I mean, people that are taking care of it, they take ownership of it, they'll renovate it, they'll make an effort to help make it better. So it's such a sustainable and regenerative way of doing something, which I think is exactly what we here at Brand we're looking for. Uh, we're looking for more. I love that these reactions have sounds, but we're looking
Yeah.
for more ways of impacting frontline communities on the ground. Because I think the work that we do is very valuable when it comes to like creating digital infrastructure, but it is about what you build for the people. And so thank you for that. Maybe a question is how what is like the longer let's say 50 years later, what would you hope for the impact of this project to be? And I mean that's such a long time in the future, but and just imagine.
2076. 2076. Um,
A livable world for our kids.
yeah, I think, I mean, I think, one of the things that I really would like to see, there's particularly one of the first places we worked was in Uganda, and there's a small community there that we worked with an organization called iWiki Uganda. Some of you may have bumped into Jonathan around the internet and around the scene. And there's about 4,000 people in his small community. Vast majority of them have no electricity. I would love to see that community all being served with electricity. So that's and I would hope that that wouldn't be the only one, but that's like a long vision that I hold, is that somehow through this work that we can help to achieve that, and all of the impact that comes along with that community. Um, I I think that also that we're seeing like just the ripple effects. I mean, 50 years from now, I mean, I can imagine the ripple effects of women that we're working with now who have another generation that are joining saving circles within 50 years, if not maybe even pushing two in some cases. Like, um, but and I, I think almost flipping the script, that some of these models that we're building begin to become even more important, as Colleen is saying, to other parts of the world. If we look at the work of Will Ruddick, as Colleen mentioned, and the idea of commitment pooling, which is certainly adjacent to saving circles, I think we're going to get back to a point where we need to be doing more bartering and trading, if you will. I think that is a real possibility in a lot of places in the world, and so I think the systems and the projects that we're doing now, I think, can be models for some of that future state for all of us. But yes, I do hope for an equitable, just world for my children, but really for all those
All children.
children of the world. Like I just, I don't know if in 50 years we can get there, but I honestly hope that those 800 million people that don't have electricity have electricity at that point. Like it seems like a solvable problem in 50 years, certainly. That also would likely have internet. Like, I mean, I just think all these things are getting added to the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs for those that are familiar as the way I see it. And so it's like, we're just getting further and further away from people having their needs met. And I think that having basic human needs met globally is totally doable. It's just, figuring out the way.
I would just add that's so true, John. Well said. I would just add that I love the cooperative model. I think that we are seeing the extremes of capitalism at this moment, and going back to workers' cooperative, employee-owned cooperative, social cooperatives. I'm just learning about those. Using those models just seems like a really great alternative right now. Relearning these models, relearning saving circles and things like that that are in our traditions a long time ago. They might really hold the key to a sustainable future and a better future for all of us.
Yeah, are there any other I know, Bren, I would love to hear from you, but I remember you said you might be on a call or doing something else at the same time, but I don't know if Bren or Marv or rather uh, any thoughts or questions.
No, I was kind of wondering, have any of these like rooftop landlord projects like Helios kind of in and around the communities that you serve, like folks trying to come in and basically deploy solar, but then kind of trap people into basically owning their rooftop essentially for solar purposes. I'm just kind of wondering if that's it's a popular project that is funded by an imitator of breads, and I'm just wondering if that's kind of common in the world as far as you're saying.
I would say not common yet, but there is some of that. So I'm familiar with the Helios project, so I know what you're talking about. And I think there's a couple things. I think with some of at least what they're doing specifically, they're looking at more like grid tied kinds of projects. And I think I think all of ours essentially are off grid systems. Few of our locations have some intermittent power, and so this is essentially their backup or their stable power, and the grid is sort of the backup, if you will, almost. But none of them are like in the US or some places where you can actually like be selling that power back. So you kind of have that constraint. The one that comes to mind, and it's another project that we've worked with a little bit, and have been looking for ways to work with them more, but is called Switch Electric, and the metering protocol is their protocol, and
Oh,
they
that's
are
fun.
yeah. And so he so they're out of Nigeria, and they've been building custom solutions for the kinds of things that you're talking about. It still would be more of a like almost peer to peer, where maybe somebody would own that rooftop and sell power back. We've looked at it in the context of like, could we then the system that's on the community hub be selling some of that power to users? And so that is one possibility there, but not so much tokenizing it and at this point that we get into kind of some of minutia, if you will. But I think there is an opportunity. The place we look at it the most is really, we've talked for a long time, is like, could you sell the solar power so that you could afford internet? And so that's been one like that we've looked at, because the reason we haven't been doing internet all along, and even now are kind of going slowly into it, is just unlike solar, there is that monthly cost. And so while we would happily provide the cost of the infrastructure, we, especially as a small organization, can't sign up for monthly fees on anything that we do. So so we have thought in the past that and we're seeing that a little bit on a small scale, not with really any tech, more of a, hey, we're seeing some like loaning the solar lanterns back and forth to people. So you kind of have some interesting models there. A little bit of like, hey, you come in and you use the computers or you use things and you get a little fee for the power, if you will. But we haven't solidified a model there. But I think over time it makes sense. Again, the internet is sort of the major piece too, because if you don't have the internet, then something like what Helios is doing, for example, if you can't get the data out into the world and be sort of running all of that, then it's not quite as effective as some of those models.
That gives me hope that y'all are actually trying to put productive resources into community ownership. Appreciate
Yes.
And that is one thing, like we have talked about like more of a micro lending and then like they pay for the power over the course of several years or something, but always with the end game of ownership. So we have looked at like, okay, could we fund a project that's and then a 5-year plan to pay it back, charging for that electricity essentially, knowing that after 5 years that the community owns that asset.
Also, it's looking at this question, the biggest challenge introducing blockchain and crypto to people who are not used to it, which is pretty much the majority of people, even in my own friends and family. Um, and I like that, you said that sometimes the technology is not necessarily needed to solve things, and that honestly is also valuable. It's true. I'm 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 from a tech background, but I'm not very technically savvy. It was more marketing and operations when I worked at Microsoft and Apple. And so um, I really believe that crypto and all the things we're doing has to be very below the surface, and we have to make it really easy and safe for people to use it. That's the number one thing. And I think Jakumu, the tech is really doing that. I also think Breadstacks looks really promising in that regard. From the demo I saw, the little bit I've seen of it. And I think Jakumu also is working on a local stable coin, and I think maybe that will be very valuable for their community. So those are the pieces I think that are coming together there, but it's always technology in service of impact. It's not the other way around. It's not the people serve the tech, which I'm seeing a lot in AI land. So we're really aware of that, and John and I are very careful about what we're doing.
Yeah. And I would say that, initially the biggest place we were using crypto was really just to move money. And so short of one organization that just wasn't comfortable with it, most of the organizations that we've worked with have been comfortable with receiving funding in crypto so that then they can pay for a solar project. So most of the projects up until the savings circle and some of these pilots we've been talking about today have been, we would go out to a community, get to know them and feel trust with them. They would say, hey, we need this solar on our community center, our hospital, our school, etc. We would say, hey, well, go out and find the solar people that you would use if you were going to go buy for this tomorrow. They would go get a quote for it. We would send them crypto and then they would cash out and pay the installer and get it done. And so that's kind of a low lift, to onboard one organization. And a lot of those organizations we met through kind of crypto. So they already had some experience there. We've also had, I don't think I can quite say all, but a lot of the organizations we work with also had hacks along the way where they screwed up somewhere. And it wasn't necessarily with our money, but we've seen them have those issues along the way that they signed something they shouldn't along the way or something, and they get drained. And it's, it's just heartbreaking. And so it has always been a tricky, just knowing that we're working with folks that are not as tech savvy, that are just, they really adopting this technology because here is a place where there's some people with some money that might want to help them. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be here anyway, in a lot of respects. Where we're seeing the challenges and like then it funneling out into communities, particularly in Tanzania, as I noted, it isn't 100% legal. So the only on-off ramps there right now are peer-to-peer. So they do have some safety around the tech, like they have like Binance and that I think they use to do that. So like it's not just like literally like trading in the streets, but it's still like you have to find a buyer to do that. So there ends up being a lot more slippage. So you don't have the stable prices for things, even for stable coins. And then if you're dealing with very small amounts, then the fees on top of that instability and slippage, all of a sudden it costs them, it's just unsustainable to pay the money to get it into crypto to then get it back out of crypto to get back to Tanzanian shillings. I do think the local stablecoin there is then going to help with some of that. So we're excited to see how that plays out. But in a lot of these cases, it makes sense for some folks, and at the end of the day, if they just need to buy food, water, whatever it is in their local community, they're probably going to need their local currency, and so crypto doesn't always help them. Working in Nigeria, some of the systems there, they can pay for crypto like at a store. So some of the off ramps and the ways that things are spendable there. So in some cases, it's a pretty easy transition. But I think the one upside across the board is majority of these countries do have some form of digital money already. So you have, like in Kenya, you have M-Pesa. People are used to having basically a wallet on their phone where they send people money connected to a phone number or other. So that piece of the hurdle is not hard. Sometimes some of the more technical stuff gets a little more difficult, but the idea of like having a digital account on their phone versus a debit card or something is pretty well used tech at this point in a lot of those places.
What gives me hope is the Artisan Fund. I was just donating to a bunch of people, including you guys. And it was really fast and easy, and you could use fiat or you could use crypto. I've never had something, after being in Gitcoin for numerous rounds. Sorry, Gitcoin, I love you, but it was never that easy. So, that kind of process, I think, is what we need for more people to actually use crypto and be comfortable with it. I think they're on a really good path. Oh, and I don't know anything about ETHX. John, do you know anything about?
I don't. I just pulled up the link, so I'll definitely dig in.
Thank you for that.
But I also was going to say, I just noticed the time, and I unfortunately am going to have to jump. I've got to get to another meeting, but I'm really glad that we could meet with y'all and hang with y'all. I know we didn't get a recording, so maybe, I don't know, maybe Josh, sometime we can hop on another call.
I've been recording on my computer, and I've never recorded this way before, so I don't know how it'll turn out. Maybe we got one.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. But thanks so much for having us. Colleen may have a few more minutes. I'm not sure, but but I really appreciate you all, and thanks so much.
Thank you so much for your work. Thank you so much for everything you guys are doing. I really admire your courage and your resilience in the midst of it all, because I know, we got to put a brave face, but sometimes it could be very hard. But you still show up every day with joy and with humility and with hope and with bravery. Doing what you're doing with the faith that, when we work together, when we collaborate, that change will happen. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. That's great. That makes our day.